Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name, as Ray just said, is Hubertus Hofkirchner. I'm the CEO of Prediki, and we've been active in the prediction market space for more than a decade, since 2002 exactly. And the reason for speaking here is that we recently launched a next generation platform with several innovations which we designed to address, I think, some very major and critical problem zones in the current state of the art of market research. Now, of course, everybody should feel absolutely free to continue doing it the old way, but for those who want to try some NewMR, here's a methodology which we believe is an improvement on many fronts. So let's start. First, I will cover some of the science of this because there are some major differences to traditional methodologies, and the three most important ones which I have time here today for are in psychology, economics, and communications. Yeah, and it's always good, I think, to understand the science, even if we want to produce rock, the better for research. So the first such difference is, and you all have heard that, yeah, we see all others always more objectively than ourselves. Yeah? And it's hard for respondents to see themselves as they really are, to tell us what they really do, and therefore with the prediction market methodology you never ever ask respondents what they will do, what they think should happen, like you would in a traditional survey. You always ask what will happen in the real future, yeah, or what a whole group will do as a body, like a group of consumers, an audience for TV, an electorate in politics. Ask about the others. The second thing, which is really interesting, is coming actually from Austria originally, is that prices, market prices, are really just a highly condensed information snippet and perfectly sufficient to inform economic decisions effectively worldwide. When F.A. Hayek, an Austrian school economist, proposed this concept in 1945, it was, of course, revolutionary, because at that time every mainstream economist believed that buyers needed full verbal information. We'd call it qualitative here in our industry, but need full verbal information for optimal economic decision making. Well, this is actually rubbish, and 30 years later another Nobel laureate, Vernon Smith, had a couple of famous trading experiments by which he showed that market prices really very quickly reflect all kinds of distributed qualitative information as it changes. So, what's the difference to traditional? In the prediction markets, respondents always get to see the current price. They can buy and sell on it. And of course, in a traditional research, you would never show the respondents the current result of a survey, because that would be deemed biasing in a frequentist method. And the third principle, I think that's probably a well-known one, is of course the notion of collective intelligence, as described by journalist James Surowiecki in his quite well-known book, Wisdom of the Crowds. And the content of this is simply showing in many examples how larger, more diverse groups of people make better decisions than smaller uniform groups or elites, or even experts, real ones or self-denominated ones. So for prediction markets, we do not use statistically balanced sample like in traditional frequentist market research, but we do actively seek out respondents groups with a diversified knowledge, looking at a client problem from different perspectives. So in a way, every trader is a little market researcher working for you, and I guess Noah from the presentation before would love that, because this is the type of relationship with respondents which researchers probably should have in a democratic future. Now, you want to know how this technology actually works, this methodology in practice. What do respondents do? Which steps do they take? And let's start with the quantitative part. In a prediction market, respondents don't just tick checkboxes. Yeah, this is a lazy system one type of activity. You can do it in your sleep if you want, and sometimes I think some people do. No, there is a very important piece of gamification with a trading game, and I fully support. I mean, what Betty said in the first speech pretty much summed it up. Yeah, gamification is different from games, and we gamify the respondent activity because respondents decide in a trading game if an answer option is more or less likely. than the current market price. In the picture which you see here, for instance, the respondent seems to think that L'Oreal is not the likely answer, the likely prediction for the question which is here in front of us. So they try to make a profit in this little game with the old rule, buy low, sell high, and the respondents all know that the only way for them to get incentive is if they are right, and which means they can express the uncertainty with the amount by investing more or less. And other than in a traditional survey, that's another very important difference, they can adjust the trade at any time upon reflection as often as they like. So these respondents really think. At the second time, besides the quantitative part of a prediction market, there's also the very important qualitative part, because concurrently to trading, people chat in the market talk, and they do that after doing a trade to tug up the stock. They also talk when the prices move, particularly when they move in the wrong direction, because then they try to talk to everybody that they are right and the market has it all wrong. Yeah? But whatever the reason, this all produces very rich reflected thoughts, which then, as the researcher or the client, give you the key reasons why the numbers are what they really are. And I think this is actually quite unique, because I've heard talk in the industry about integrated quant and qual, but it's not really. Most people who say that just combine methods. This is fully integrated, and I'll show you an example afterwards. The other thing which is important in the prediction market is that you never ever ask a question directly. The art of this methodology is the design of what we call a question battery of normally something to 6 to 10 prediction questions, which are the carrier vehicles of the predictions. You'd use comparative prediction questions, alternatives directly against each other, to get respondents in a holistic mindset, for them to really understand what the client wants. You use monadic prediction question to have them convert their thinking into KPIs. That's a very important difference in prediction markets. These KPIs are always meaningful to your CEO, to your marketing director. This would be like market shares or volumes, so stuff which really means something. And the other important thing sometimes is to distinguish between near and far horizon questions, just to find out what's a fluke and what's solid. And once you look then at the sum of a battery's results, you'll pretty see clearly which decision alternative for your client is best. So what's this good for? Which is the dreaded question which every inventor faces, like the Neanderthal here from Germany a couple of thousand years ago with the wheel. So I'll show you 3 key advantages versus traditional survey methods. The first one, with a traditional, if you want to do a traditional method, you often must decide whether you want to do either quant or qual, but in a way that's like being blind on one eye. Yeah, so often you will pretty much have to do both, which doubles the cost in terms of time and money. And from what I said before, you can probably already predict the first advantage. You get 2 for the price of 1, like that nice young gentleman here. You only need to do 1 study. You get precise numeric results expressed as prices and charts, which are forecasts, and concurrently you get the verbal reasons behind those results, and additionally of often cited insights, plus a lot of creative input. So compared to the traditional way, this is half the cost and twice as fast. The second advantage, which I want to talk about today, is the much sharper differentiation which you get with this method between alternatives, particularly when you use the so-called comparative prediction questions. These can find differences where traditional methods show very, very small differences, roughly equal results. For instance, on the example which you can see on your screen now, the traditional resulted in a 51 versus 49 liking, almost the same. And you can see here the curve of the prediction market, how easily the participants, the respondents here, can differentiate to a level of about 80 to 20. And you can see through the real true quant-qual, so to say, combination integration, how each argument moved the forecast. of which concept will perform better. I think that's pretty much unique. Now the third advantage is, I think, and that's pretty well known already, is the greater accuracy of prediction markets. And since this is for the Americas, I picked an example for the US. Many of you may remember the media frenzy about Nate Silver, who correctly predicted the outcome of the presidential elections of 2008 and then the even easier one for 2012. But in 2008, he was right on 49 of 50 states, and he beat all traditional polling institutes. Well, with far, far less fanfare, the prediction markets performed just as well as Nate. They correctly called 49 out of 50 states, and if you come to the little let's compare pictures game, you will see that only state number 11, Missouri, swung between prediction markets and actual results. This accuracy was tested mostly by academics in the last decade for really a huge number of subject areas. They are as diverse as HP printer sales, presidential elections, steel sales, you name it, it's been tested. And it's been tested also versus other methodologies, such as just corporate forecasting systems, which of course are huge in companies like HP, traditional surveys already mentioned, and even just expert interviews face-to-face. With the first generation markets, they already beat the traditional methods in 3 times out of 4. Now, I'll show you some practicalities, 2 examples of actual market research projects using this new generation of the methodology. One in B2C, one in B2B. The B2C one used a consumer panel with 400 raw respondents, and the B2B one, we used a panel of 50 in-house participants within the corporation client. The B2C sample project is a simple communication concept pretest. You'll all know that. This was for a center-filled candy. It's somehow anonymized, but this is a real project. Testing started very early for this outside hard, inside soft candy, and the client really only had a headline and 2 paragraphs. But that's already enough for that methodology. Yeah? So 7 concepts were singled out of even more as potentially fitting the new candy and needed to be tested before they invested in further execution. For the main quant result, you should always use the heavy hitter of the methodology, which is the monadic prediction question, 1 for each decision alternative. And you can see here that the concept ranking comes as a meaningful commercial KPI. I already told you. Everybody else will love it, they'll understand it, it won't just end up in some drawer unused. And the other important thing about the methodology, this is 100% transparent. There's no behind the curtain black box benchmarking to a researcher's highly secret proprietary database which nobody can check. No, this is really the respondents who transmit their thinking into your KPI. The Monadics also will give you a bell curve, like the standard deviation and the interquartiles of these forecasts, which is excellent for scenario planning for your business plans. This is then the first of 3 qualitative result types which prediction markets produce, which is a ranking of the decision alternatives according to favorable and unfavorable mentions. Mentions are organized for such a type of project, just like the usual concept criteria which you would work with in a traditional survey, like you use credibility, relevance, difference to the competition, purchase intent, blah, blah, blah. So this is all you know. The only nice thing is you can text analyze the market talk of people, and the more net positive mentions, the higher the rank. And you can see, if you have it in mind, how similar the Qual and Quant results are, which is very typical. These 2 are truly integrated. A more conventional qualitative output is, of course, Verbatim, Snippets, and word clouds. And with a little preparation, you can just drop the market talk for each question in a word cloud tool, and word frequency will show you directly the focus of traders' conversations, which in this case, as you can see with the big soft side, words on the right-hand side was about the soft filling. On the B2B project, with the in-house panel of 50, for certain project types, in-house groups just have better knowledge than consumer panels. So this client, for example, needed forecasts for future energy prices to decide about machinery innovation projects. They had a couple of dozen innovation projects underway, and they needed to decide which ones to drop. But for the customers, in turn, the ROI of buying these innovative machines depended largely on the dollar savings from energy cost, which means that our clients' decisions were driven by those costs because that determined the machine prices, what it's worth to customers, and of course the sales volume forecast. Now the problem, however, they had was that the innovation project owners were extremely clever. Yeah? Of course, there are so many reputable external sources for energy prices, and they all give you a different number, that they just needed to pick the most favorable forecast and push their own innovation project. Yeah? So our client on aggregate suffered from completely inflated price and sales expectations, and lost, and so they spent a lot of money on an R&D pipeline where half of it you probably could have weeded out early enough. So what came out of that? As you can see, because the customer ROI had to accrue over several years, the lifetime of a machine, it was really important to separate short-term thinking and long-term thinking about electricity, gas, oil prices. And remember, we have a special question type developed for that. And here you can see how different the long-term expectations, the relevant ones, once the short-term considerations were separated out. And look, please, particularly at the blue arrow at the bottom, at the significant price rise, which the quantitative part, the trading, resulted for long-term oil. Which didn't bode well, of course, for all oil-related new machinery in the innovation portfolio. Here, a last slide, how integrated and how consistent the verbal mention analysis was on that. The long-term oil price before, which had a 5.27% forecast rise, was also the only one which had, so to say, a very, very strong mentions on the strong rise. Versus the short-term oil price, people thought that it might even fall further. Yeah, so I think those were the couple of advantages which we think this innovation has: full integration, Quant, Qual, accuracy, and differentiation. And I want to conclude essentially with emphasizing once again how important and advantageous it is if you look at any situation from both sides, like I guess these pilots should, not only look backwards. So that concludes my presentation completely. And so if you want to learn more about the prediction market methodology in this new generation, or if you want a full case study, just feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. Just search my name, Hubertus Hofkirchner. And on Twitter, my handle is Hubertus63. And I do personally reply to every message. Thanks.